Everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking with Taylor Wilson. Taylor, it's great to connect with you, CEO and founder of Creative Shizzle. So I'm looking forward to talking about marketing and creativeness and putting some sizzle in your brand's shizzle is what someone can see at creativeshizzle.com. So let's talk about that, because the attention span today, Taylor, is less than a goldfish, less than 7 seconds. Getting somebody's attention, keeping it attention. It's almost like we're in the attention getting business. Shelf lives are short, minds are busy. And so how much sizzle and shizzle do you need to be remembered?
I think a lot. I think, and it's not necessarily just about, making your stuff look flashy, but I think it's really when it comes to keeping attention, and that goldfish stat is one that'll make every marketer go crazy.
Yeah.
When it comes to keeping attention, I think it's about speaking to your target audience in a way that is like solving their problems. Where like I'm talking to you and I'm, as a business owner, doing something for you, as a product doing something for you, whether it's solving a problem, whether it's helping you feel awesome in the apparel that you're wearing and you're living up to some life aspiration. So I think it's like, if you can get into the head of your customer and potential customer, that's when you keep their attention.
So let's talk about that. Identifying your customer. I think that's something that is usually always kind of front and center for companies, and not always easy to do, right? To really understand who your client is. What's the process for going through that from your perspective? Because you can put all the creative, you can put all the shizzle, you can put all the sizzle, but if you're not talking to your audience, then it goes on deaf ears. So how do you really zoom in and understand who your audience is?
Yeah, I think it first sort of starts with taking a look at what do we do? What is our product? What does our product do for the world or a certain type of person potentially? And then you start kind of refining it from there. I think it's really important to refine your audience, because people often and brands often try to be all things to all people. Well, we're for everyone. Well, like not necessarily, like when you look at the Stanley Cups that have it's just become a phenomenon over the last, I don't know, few years, really. Like that brand has been around for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And they used to be more geared towards men who are outdoorsmen, who are camping, things like that. And now it's so geared towards women who are doing carpool and driving their kids around, and they want a big cup that lasts and keeps their drink cold all day.
So did they miss the audience, or did they shift the audience?
I think they shifted the audience a bit.
Yeah.
I think they saw an opportunity with a new audience to shift it and say, oh, there's this whole new world out there of really, really loyal fans. What if we focus on them? And so sometimes an audience can, in a way, sort of like come to you. And I think a question for you as a brand is, are we listening to those cues in the market? Sometimes I think it is about what's going on in the market and listening to cues and then saying, well, can we align with them? Are we a good fit for them? And if so, how do we plant ourselves, in front of them in a way that is a good fit for them as the consumer?
Let's talk about, thank you for that. Let's talk about the balance of professional sizzle, shizzle, without being over the top. Sometimes it's just a sliver. I love kind of the $1 shave club. That guy's commercial was brilliant. And I think sometimes companies try to kind of copy that shtick, but they either go too far over, too far under. What's the recipe for shizzle, for sizzle, yet professional, where you don't get annoying?
Yeah, for sure. I do think that there's got to be a blend, and it really sort of depends too on the brand and the product and who you're trying to reach. So Dr. Squatch is another good one where it's a
great
fun,
stuff.
They've
Yeah.
got great stuff, they've got funny commercials, it's a great brand, it works for that market, I think.
Yeah.
This is a controversial one that just came out, Jaguar and the Jaguar rebrand. That's maybe an area where they're trying to go out and get a new market, but it could be argued that it's an area where they're not really necessarily looking at their existing customer base and bringing them along with them. They're just sort of
What is their marketing now? I haven't seen it.
oh, they just came out with a big rebrand, and it's just not, I would say what's kind of being talked about in the brand world right now is they have a very classic, refined brand,
Yeah.
right? And maybe a customer base that wants classic, refined things
Yeah.
versus this new brand they came out with is very looks more like mine, it's kinda wacky with the big bright pink and,
Mm,
it looks more modern and flashy and in your face and not necessarily, in line with the classic brand of Jaguar, and so
yeah.
that's kind of been a big one that's been buzzing, but I do think that it kinda depends on your audience. What are they into? And like thinking about bringing them along with you into your story. So you
Yeah.
can be too flashy for some, but maybe if that's what your audience wants and that's what's going to work with them, then like go there.
Yeah. Let's kind of fundamentally talk about marketing versus branding, right? So
Mm.
for somebody who's listening, I think sometimes I see this as a business coach, Taylor. Sometimes people get their wires crossed on what's what. How do you, as a branding firm, differentiate marketing versus branding?
Yeah, I love that question because it is such a and like branding is a nebulous term, like, where people I think you can kind of put your finger on marketing and oh, it's social media, it's email communication. So this is how I think of branding versus marketing. I think branding is really about differentiation and getting attention. And then I think marketing is about doing the things to keep that conversation going once you
Yeah.
have their attention. So, like branding, you gotta stand out, you gotta, like, make them I always think of it as, like, people are looking at their phones all day long, like, what's gonna make them stop the scroll and look at you? And then once you've gotten their attention and maybe they're hooked, maybe they go
Yeah.
buy your product, maybe they sign up for your email, whatever it is, then how are you regularly communicating with them and engaging them? I think that's marketing. And so
Yeah.
marketing is like very tactical in a lot of ways. It's strategic, but it's a lot of like tactics. Whereas I think branding is oftentimes that bigger strategic, visionary kind of discussion. And then marketing is, I think, more of like the tactical implementation of keeping the brand in front of people and
Yeah.
engaging with people.
Yeah. Well said. And so let's talk about keeping people's attention in branding. Um, is it done through content? Is it done through influencers? Is it done through images? Is it done with what? What's the formula?
Yeah, there's no one-stop shop formula for anyone. There's a lot of things, and I think of I think of the whole marketing mix as like a puzzle, a big puzzle, and there's a lot of puzzle pieces, and you can put different puzzle pieces together. For some people, they might just do really well focusing on social media. For others, it's a mix of print and events and social. I think again, it's about kind of determining who your audience is, like we talked about at the start, and then figuring out where they hang out.
Yeah.
So maybe your audience hangs out more on Twitter. Go spend more time on Twitter. Maybe your audience, if you're like a B2B tech marketer, you're hanging out a lot on LinkedIn. Go spend more time on LinkedIn. Maybe you're a lifestyle brand, hang out more on Instagram or TikTok. I think there's different places to sort of think about putting yourself more. I'm personally really interested in quality over quantity and then doing really, really well in 1 or 2 places first and
Hmm.
getting great at that, and then taking it from there. I think a lot of marketing consultants will kinda, like, tell you, "Be like omni-channel, be on every channel," but, like, most businesses, most marketers just get really overwhelmed by that, and again, if you try to do all things, that's when sometimes the wheels fall off the bus. And so I really advise people to like figure out where's your audience hanging out. Let's focus on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I happen to, I'm on a lot of platforms, but I really love LinkedIn. For me,
Mhm.
LinkedIn is my number one. And so if you were guiding somebody to, once they pick their one thing, from a consistent standpoint, and when I'm talking to clients, I tell them when you're doing social, they'll say, well, how long? It's forever. Marketing is a forever thing. And so how do you guide people to, if we can use LinkedIn as an example,
Yeah.
how often, what type of content? And I know it's, the type that your client needs, but what do you suggest to them? Because it
Yeah.
seems to me, I post a lot of content, but it seems to me a lot of times people have a hard time posting, content and being a thought
Mhm.
leader in that way. So what are your thoughts to, how someone becomes a thought leader?
Yeah, I think the hardest part is getting started. And I do have a lot of clients where I'm kind of regularly saying like you should post on LinkedIn, not as the brand, not as the company page, but as an individual. I know, I just feel uncomfortable. So a lot of times that holds people back, but I do think that people connect with people.
Yeah.
They connect with the brand, but, like, people kind of bring them into the brand a lot of times, and I think it's so important to get out there and just start trying things. I have LinkedIn is also my favorite and where I kinda play around the most, and I literally just started trying things. I started trying posting videos on LinkedIn back in, like, 2016, and people thought I was sorta weird and zany, but, like, I just did it and I kinda got over and it's not that I don't have imposter syndrome inside that's eating away from me, like, but I just kind of find that if you let go of that for just a minute,
Yeah.
post something, start to get positive feedback because people connect with people and it works. It like kind of gives you a little bit of momentum and
Yeah.
confidence, I think, to keep doing it. So you can do video content. A lot of people aren't comfortable with that yet. It does work really well, especially if you're doing short 60-second stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but, share your point of view. Find what
Right.
your point of view is as it relates to your business or your life and start getting consistent with that point of view on a regular basis. It
Yeah.
could be written, you could start a LinkedIn newsletter as an example. You could just use a tool like LinkedIn like a blog, to where you're sort of sharing your regular thoughts and point of view in written format. You don't have to do video. I think kind of long form posts that are meaningful and have an interesting perspective work really, really well on a tool
Yeah.
like LinkedIn. And then, shorten it if you're doing stuff on other platforms. If you're on Instagram, do reels, things like that.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Let me ask you a question from a marketing standpoint. What does the right marketing team look like within a company? A lot of
Mm,
times it's like sometimes I see companies, whoever is the least busy, gets marketing, or someone in
yeah.
HR that has a little bit of time gets marketing. But to me, it's a really, everything is sales and marketing. And so it's really, I think, important that somebody within a company at least has a point person, if they're using companies like yours, of course, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But what does the internal structure need to look like for a company like yours to really thrive for the company?
Yeah, I think you need at least 2 basic functions. I think marketing really is art and science coming together.
Yeah.
There's a very technical aspect of marketing. That's your automations, your systems, your marketing ops, revenue ops. Working with the sales team on actually like getting leads in the door, tracking them, making sure people are being nurtured with automations and things like that in a personal way and an effective way. And then there's the art part of it. So I think you sort of need the ability or the characteristics of people who can be creative and strategic and think about asking those questions of what is the problem that our product is solving in the world, and then how do we show up for people who have that problem,
Yeah.
and relay that in the brand and in visuals and in storytelling and all of that, and then how are we technically like making this really efficient,
Yeah.
as efficient as possible. And so I also think it's a really important characteristic to have marketing and sales working very closely and being really aligned. That's often a problem we see, where marketing is doing one thing over here, sales is doing another thing. They're fighting all the time. Well, like everybody's just trying to do their best, right? So like come together, talk together, solution together. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really important aspect.
Yeah.
I think
Good.
it's really more like characteristics and functions.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. All right. How important is podcasts for marketing? Having a
Ah,
podcast.
I am a big fan of podcasts. I've been podcasting myself for a long time. I think that it's not something you have to have if you just don't have the bandwidth for it, but I think it's incredibly beneficial.
Yeah.
So think of your podcast as your pillar content. Let's say you are a small team and you don't have like a ton of people on your team to create a ton of new content all the time. If you have a podcast, it could be really short, 15-minute conversations, 15-minute kind of point of views. Take that content, turn it into blogs, repurpose it into 30 different pieces of social media,
Yeah.
repurpose that into your email marketing. A podcast can go a long way in terms of giving you really, really great meaningful content that you can then repurpose and distribute in a lot of different ways. So
Yeah.
I think they're highly beneficial.
Yeah. I do too. I do too. It's been a huge part of my business, and I
Yeah.
think it's huge. All right. Quick speed round. Book that's had a big impact on you.
Say that again.
A book that's had a big impact on you.
Ooh, okay, Brand Intervention. It's by David Breyer. He's become a friend and a mentor of mine. He just came out with his second book. I've not read it yet. It literally just came out, but Brand Intervention was huge. It was really short, easy to read. And it just makes you like a lot of these big stop and think about it kind of moments while reading
Yeah.
that book.
All right. Good. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
That's a good. I mean, it sounds a little bit cliche, but I think it's true, and like fail faster.
Yeah.
And I started hearing that the first startup I went and worked for, where we were a really small and scrappy team, and I'd never been in the startup. I was in big corporate, environments before that, and then I went to the startup that had like 5 people, and they kept saying fail faster, and I was like, what does that even mean? And then I really started thinking about it and learning, and I started failing faster. And I think it's just so true. Like I think you've got to be willing to just like jump off the ledge sometimes, break some bones, get up. You'll learn a lot from it. You'll be a lot better from it.
I love it. Last question. One thing everybody can do to take their marketing to the next level is
Consider your customer and like really what they care about. And I say that, and I think it relates to what we've been talking about here today, but I really think it's so easy for people to get sort of like in their own way with just like, well, we care about this and we need to communicate this about ourselves. But if you just flip the script and you start approaching your marketing from the perspective of like, what are we doing? What value are we bringing? What problems are we solving? How does it matter to them on the other side of that phone screen or that email? I think you'll get better results.
It's great. Tell everybody who your ideal clients are, Taylor, and how they can connect with you.
Yeah. Well, at Creative Shizzle, we help teams and small businesses scale their marketing with awesome creative that is on demand. So we help with graphic design, content writing, creation. Find us at creativeshizzle.com. It is creative, SHIZZLE.com. And I am on LinkedIn a lot. So you can go find me on LinkedIn. I talk a lot about brand and marketing on LinkedIn. And we love to help small businesses, startups, tech marketers who have big goals but don't necessarily have the in-house resources to get all of that content designed.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I appreciate you taking time to talk to us, Taylor. I love talking about marketing. I love talking about branding. I think, marketing, branding, sales, they're the lifeline of every single company, and getting focused into who your target audience is, like you've talked about, how to give them the shizzle, how to give them your sizzle, everything that you do at your company is really, really important. Think community. I love this podcast because I get to bring in guests who are in alignment with what I do, which is I'm a business coach. I work with successful people who are stuck. I get them unstuck. Something that you shared today that I think is a place that people do get stuck, Taylor, where I work with them and they need to get unstuck, is bringing sales and marketing together, because we don't want the infighting. We want the collaboration, because everybody, like you said, comes to work to do a great job and the best that they can. And when you are in flow and have a process and everything is streamlined and communication is effective, great things can happen. So thanks so much, Taylor, for taking time to talk about sales and marketing. Think community. You can reach Taylor at creativeshizzle.com. If you want to talk about any business coaching, you can reach me at jondwoskin.com. Taylor, thanks a ton. This was great.
Yeah. Thanks, John. It was fun.